What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. We cover political news, but today is Saturday, so you know that means we're covering a debate. Now, what we got coming up is pretty interesting if you ask me. We've got Destiny versus Dennis Prager on the David Pakman show. It's like, okay, so what's going on with this? This is kind of strange, but honestly, I'll give it to David Pakman. He does an okay job with moderating between the two. He's not too bad. There's a couple times he interjects, bringing his left-wing opinion. It's supposedly supposed to be facts, right? But it's not really facts, but we'll get into that. Now, the debate starts out talking about the divisiveness between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, we all know, and the longtime viewers of this channel know that, yeah, they're both kind of divisive, but for one, you got Joe Biden over here constantly talking about MAGA Republicans are going to destroy the country. They're Hitler. They're a threat to democracy and all this other garbage. Well, Donald Trump is over here just making jokes about these people. Right? The divisiveness is very different from either side. Donald Trump's not over here calling Joe Biden, fascist, Hitler, and all this other garbage, right? He just says he's destroying the country, which, in my opinion, he most certainly is. If you look at all the policy prescription, you look at what's going on with the economy, he most certainly is. If you look at what's going on with the southern border, he most certainly is. If you look at foreign policy, we've got wars all over the place that could have possibly been prevented, but they didn't even try. But, that's a matter of opinion. But let's go ahead and get into this first section. They're talking about the divisiveness of the two. Check this out.
If Biden was invited to speak about a particular BLM riot and Biden would have ever uttered the words Antifa, stand back and stand by, like Donald Trump said for Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, I think that the conservative sphere of media would have erupted in anger. If you want to talk about like who's more divisive or not, you just need look no further than the legislation passed in Congress. President Trump ran for how long on repeal and replace the ACA? He wasn't able to replace it. He ran for how long on infrastructure? Biden was the one that passed that bill. Donald Trump didn't. And in terms of Donald Trump just being one man, Donald Trump is not just one man. Donald Trump is the entirety of the conservative party right now. And if you're a conservative politician or if you're in conservative media, you absolutely know that because you either toe his line or you are destroyed.
Okay, so, it's funny he would mention that because now he's trying to equivocate the Proud Boys to Antifa. There is no equivocation between the two. They are vastly different. Antifa is a domestic terrorist group while the Proud Boys most certainly are not. Yeah, sure, they may have some extreme ideas, but Proud Boys don't show up to left-wing events and organize rallies and all this other garbage to foment terrorism, to foment violence, to get in there just to antagonize these people. However, Antifa does this a lot. They show up as counter-protesters, and they most certainly foment violence. They most certainly show up to these places just to antagonize the right. Like we tell that story all the time of Antifa showing up to a Donald Trump rally where the Proud Boys were just there attending the rally, doing their thing. Antifa shows up, starts antagonizing the Proud Boys, throwing stuff at them. So when the Proud Boys finally get tired of it, they go over there and they have a fight. Well, the cops show up and Antifa breaks and scatters and they just run off. Well, the Proud Boys, being patriots to this country, and they go up to the cops and start telling the cops, hey, look, this is what happened, blah, 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 here's our IDs, and the cops said, okay, put your hands behind your back, you're going to jail for defending themselves. They didn't care that Antifa ran off. They didn't go after Antifa whatsoever. Why not? Antifa is allowed to just terrorize the American populace whenever the hell it wants to. They are tasked with showing up to any sort of right-wing event and antagonizing these people, and the Proud Boys most certainly do not do that. And Destiny over here is trying to equivocate the two. I'm sorry. That does not work, dude. These people are insane, if you ask me. They love to just take the narrative, they take reality, and they twist it so far that it's no longer reality. It's like you're trying to equivocate Antifa to the Proud Boys. That's just outright insane, if you ask me. But let's get into the next section because it's quite interesting and the derangement comes out in full.
What did Trump do in 4 years in power that compares to Biden's and the Democrats' suppression of freedom in this country?
Well, let's let Stephen answer. And I think, to be fair, Dennis, I'm just kind of an arbiter here. Some of the things you mentioned with regard to masks and vaccines, I believe they happened while Trump was president, not Joe Biden. But I'll let Stephen, if he wants to address that. But to Dennis's question, up until January 5th, 2021, what was the illiberalism from Trump?
I would argue that the illiberalism from Trump was Trump's inability to work with Congress and trying to usurp as much power in the executive as possible to do things unilaterally as the executive without getting any kind of congressional approval or legislation from congressional, obviously. So like an example of this might be he was unable to bring Congress together to get anything done insofar as the border or immigration goes. So instead, he relies on his executive power during times of great emergency to send the military down to the border. That's a usurping of power by the executive to try to run immigration policy on the executive. I don't think that was a very good thing because he couldn't get Congress together to do it. I think that his undermining, even if we ignore January 6th itself, and I'll ignore the electorate for fraud and everything else that he did leading up to December 14th and beyond, all of the claims that Donald Trump made about how the vote is going to be rigged, mail-in ballots are going to be rigged. Notice that if you listen to his rhetoric, he never says, this is what we need to do to secure mail-in ballots. This is what we need to do to make sure that our election is safe. All he wanted to do was get rid of mail-in ballots because he knew that Democrats were more likely to vote that way than Republicans. He had no desire to make the election safe. He only wanted to make sure that the election was going to be won by him. When you talk about like big tech and you talk about trying to take away freedoms using big tech, well, we just had Twitter being purchased by Elon Musk, who is, if you watch any of his tweets, is clearly a right-wing supporter. All of his speech and all of his support goes to right-wing candidates or right-wing talking points. And if you talk about a threat to the freedom of tech, well, the biggest threat that was represented to tech was when conservatives wanted to bash Twitter and Facebook over the head with restricting their section or rescinding their Section 230 protections, which would have allowed you to sue essentially people that hosted other people's posts for things that those people posted. You want to talk about destroying big tech or censoring big tech, removing Section 230 protections would have been the number one way to do it. And then when you want to talk about like requests made by big tech, if you want to call those censorship, we got the full Twitter files leaks. And as much as Republicans try to rewrite the record, Taibbi himself said, when it comes to the New York Post story, for instance, there was not a single example. There was no evidence whatsoever of government intrusion into Twitter to ask them to remove that story. But you better believe when that one comedian lady said that Donald Trump was a pussy ass bitch, she tweeted, Donald Trump sent in a request to Twitter to have them remove that tweet because he didn't like it. So if you want to talk about like big tech censorship or attempts to do so, we can talk about Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. We can talk about the types of requests that Donald Trump sent into Twitter, as opposed to the Biden administration, who when they sent in requests for specific tweets to be taken down, it was because they were of pictures of Hunter Biden. I'll just say that, not even close to comparable. And when you talk about like authoritarian actions, I think that one of the largest authoritarian actions you can take is to try to usurp as much power for yourself as possible. And that might be done in terms of running things that should be done by Congress, like immigration policy, by using the military. That might be done in ways of like undermining an upcoming election and saying that the election is going to be fraudulent, or it might be done in ways of like avoiding ever being held responsible for things that you do for criminal activity, right? The Supreme Court's granted him criminal immunity. He wasn't impeached in the Senate because they said, oh, well, we can't impeach him. He's already out of office. And he pardoned almost every single person that worked with him. Why would he pardon people like Paul Manafort? That's so crazy. I understand why people might want to argue for pardons for maybe like Flynn or maybe Stone, but Paul Manafort, why? It was so crazy. You can look up how many pardons he's done on the presidential website. It's insane compared to any other president.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down with that. Okay, so he first starts off talking about the border. Okay, he couldn't get Congress to agree on building a wall. That's what he wanted to do. Congress didn't want to work with him because Donald Trump came out of nowhere. The Republicans didn't really know who he was. They didn't really know what was going on. Building a wall was kind of a weird idea at the time. Nobody really wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to put their name on it for some reason, which I don't understand that, which nowadays I don't think he would have any problems getting that done. However, he talks about in emergency situations, really, right? So he wants to secure the border. The president is specifically tasked with securing our southern border, right? The Department of Homeland Security, that's what they're there for. That falls under the executive branch. That's what they're supposed to do, right? We have a situation going on. We have hundreds of thousands of people a month pouring across our southern border. He wants to stop that. Where is the problem? Why do you need Congress? Why do you need to change these laws that state we can't have people coming across the border illegally? There was no laws that needed to be changed as far as immigration policy to stop people from coming across that southern border. He wanted to get a border wall built, and Congress didn't agree. So how else is he supposed to secure the southern border? We didn't have enough agents. They couldn't agree on new agents to do this, right? They couldn't agree on any sort of immigration policy. So how else is he supposed to secure the southern border but sending the damn military down there to help out? I don't understand what he's trying to argue with that. And next, he talks about the mail-in balloting and all this other garbage. Right now, we've talked about that at length. The shadow campaign, folks. He's talking about getting rid of mail-in balloting. He says he didn't want to do anything to secure the election. What are you talking about? That's exactly what he was trying to do by getting rid of mail-in balloting, right? Democrat activists were tasked with going to Democrat residences to get Democrats to vote by mail, getting people that normally wouldn't vote to vote by mail, right? Changing rules, changing laws around elections to make it easier for Democrats to win. Yeah, I would call that cheating. As a matter of fact, I would call that fraud. You know, that's what Donald Trump said. Technically, it wasn't fraud, and we've discussed this at at length several times, right? That you can call it fraud if you want to. Technically, it's not fraud because Democrats changed the rules and changed the laws to make fraud legal, right? You can't go and fill out and grab a bunch of absentee ballots from people, right? Like some states changed the rules around this to allow Democrats to do that. It's utter insanity, right? Talking about Donald Trump didn't want to secure the election. Of course he did. He wanted to make everybody go vote on election day, which is how it should be, right? All this mail-in balloting crap, you're just opening the door for fraud to come in and rear its little head, right? Which is exactly what happened in the 2020 election, if you want to call that fraud. I think what is fraud was the conspiracy that Democrats put together. They hired people to go, like I said, in the background and to change rules, change laws, and not tell Republicans what you were doing, not telling them about the rule changes, about ballot harvesting, about absentee ballots, about the drop boxes, about mail-in balloting, about all this garbage. They didn't tell Republicans that they were changing these rules and laws. That to me is fraudulent action, and I totally understand why Donald Trump thought there was a lot of fraud going on, and I totally get why he took the actions that he took. And then he goes on to talk about usurping power to just bypass Congress and all this other garbage. Like Joe Biden never done that. Joe Biden is the king of that, as a matter of fact. Look at student loan forgiveness. The Supreme Court said, no, can't do that. Joe Biden says, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. Figures out another way to do it, right? Then it gets struck down in the courts again, several times, as a matter of fact, and we've covered those stories on this channel. Go back and check those stories out if you don't believe me. Several times with the student loan forgiveness, and there's been many other things, as a matter of fact. Look at what he's doing on the southern border. Texas, all they want to do is try to secure their own state. The federal government is using your tax dollars to try to stop Texas from enforcing a law that they made under their constitution to stop criminal aliens from coming into their state. And the Joe Biden's administration is fighting against them to stop them from doing that. That is utter insanity. Sure, you want to make the argument that the federal government has the sole responsibility to secure our southern border? Great, I agree. How about we get the federal government to freaking do that? When they do that, Texas doesn't have to make that sort of law. Like this guy, Destiny is just insane with this, right? Like Joe Biden trying to use OSHA, for crying out loud, to mandate vaccines. How about that for an authoritarian, Destiny? How do you like that? That's utter insanity, if you ask me. And there's many other instances, but we're going along on this one, so let's keep going and see what else he's got.
Can you define open border, Dennis?
Yes, letting anybody who wants to come into this country come in. It's not complex.
And then to be clear, you think that that's the case right now?
That's the case right now. And that is the case what the Democrats want. That is correct.
So
They have sanctuary cities all over my state.
Excuse me, sanctuary city has nothing to do with immigration policy.
Oh, as sure as it does. If you are here illegally, we will not allow ICE or anyone else to take you away. You can come. That's what sanctuary city means.
That is not what a sanctuary city is. That's not what a sanctuary. Sure, I can tell you what it means. When it comes to enforcing immigration, that is exclusively in the purview of the United States government. Now, it tends to be the case that if you're a state official, you can collect information about whether or not a person is here legally or not. And if you want, you can turn that information over to federal authorities like Immigrations and Customs Enforcement or like the Department of Homeland Security. You don't have an obligation to do so. And some cities explicitly say we won't. So a sanctuary city is just a city where if they arrest you, they're not going to do an immigration check. And if you fail, they're going to turn you over to the federal authorities. As somebody that is a conservative, who I imagine would have an appreciation for the concept of federalism, but the important protections of states' rights, because that's what we said when we threw abortion back to the states, you should champion a state deciding whether or not they would want to cooperate with a federal authority when it comes to turning somebody over for matters of deportation. But a sanctuary city does not legalize illegal immigration. It's just whether or not a city wants to cooperate with federal investigators when it comes to turning over an undocumented citizen or immigrant.
Fine. Okay, we can continue.
Okay, this section was just insanity, if you ask me, because Dennis Prager is talking about sanctuary cities, right, and what they do. And then Destiny's like, no, that's not what they do. And then he goes on to explain, yeah, that's exactly what they do. They don't tell the federal government that they've got criminal aliens in their city or state. Yeah, that is pretty much not giving a damn about federal laws and just saying whatever. And then he tries to use, states' rights kind of crap, right? No, I'm sorry. That does not play for me. When you apprehend criminal aliens and then don't notify the federal government, why would you want these people in your state or city anyway? Right? That is outright violating federal law because it is illegal for those people to be in your state. I don't understand the point of what Destiny's trying to say with this. That's what sanctuary cities do. That's what sanctuary states do. It's a utter violation of federal law. You knowingly have a criminal alien in your city or state, and you're not notifying the government of that, right? That might not be breaking the law, but it is breaking the essence of the law, if you will. It's just, he's playing semantics here, and it makes absolutely no sense. But this next section is just great. Check this out.
All right. So what is your position? Since I think the whole left stinks, you think Donald Trump stinks. So I talk about the left. So let's go to Gavin Newsom. In California, where I live, there is a law. It is a law. It's not a recommendation. That if a kid, an 8-year-old, says that she is a boy, and the school is not permitted to tell the parents that the girl thinks she is a boy and goes by a boy's name in her school. Do you think that is a moral and good law?
I don't think about this. I'm so sorry, but when I look at Donald Trump, this is a man who tried to overthrow the election and resist the peaceful transfer of power. I can't think of a thing that I think less about than how where trans people stand. Just to be clear, hold on. Just to be clear for people that don't know. Just to be clear for people that don't know my background.
You guys on the left should thank God every day for.
Hold on. Well, wait, Dennis. If Stephen, hold on. If Stephen doesn't want to answer the question as you see it, allow him not to answer it. But let's hear.
I'll answer it. I'll answer it. I was banned from Twitch for opposing the integration of trans people into sports. I don't think it's appropriate. I probably stand in opposition to a lot of the very, very far left.
Okay.
What?
The law. Okay. So let me just go on record. I can give you the rest. We could talk hours.
Sure. What's the California law for the 8-year-old? Go ahead. What was it?
Yes. You cannot, a school cannot tell a parent, doesn't have to, is not allowed to tell a parent if a child identifies as the other sex in a California school.
That would probably be something I'd be opposed to as a parent. I think I would want to know that if my kid was identifying as a different gender in class.
Correct. So you see, if it weren't for Trump, you would have to spend the time with me or anyone else defending the left and their scummy little laws like that ruin lives of kids and have girls get their breasts cut off at 18 or even younger. It's like nothing matters. All that matters is January 6th. Every time I raise an issue, we go back to January 6th.
Because he tried to rebel. It was a rebellion against the peaceful transfer of power.
He told people to go peacefully to the halls of Congress.
He told Mike Pence, why were they going there? What were they going there for?
To protest the results of the election
Exactly.
because they thought it was cheating. You're right.
Exactly.
You're
It was an
allowed to
insurrection. They
protest.
thought, no, you're not allowed to protest
you're not
with
allowed
violence.
to overthrow, but you were allowed to protest.
When they were going there to support Mike Pence, what did they want Mike Pence to do?
Yes, they wanted Mike Pence not to accept certain electors from certain states.
Exactly.
Yes, that's right.
Correct.
Okay, but okay.
Which was against the ECA, right? That was illegal under the Electoral Count Act, right?
Okay, so this is like the definition of derangement right here, and he's got Trump derangement, January 6th derangement, if you want to call it that, outright. He can't even have a policy discussion about the left's policy of transitioning kids and all their garbage, like what Dennis Prager was talking about. He somehow pivots from that to January 6th and all this other crap. But, Dennis Prager doesn't do a very good job. Sure, yeah, he had every right, and I talk about this all the time. Donald Trump had every right to tell Mike Pence not to certify certain electors from certain states because they were still disputed, Destiny. As a matter of fact, the governors defied the state legislatures and sent the electors in to be certified regardless. Didn't care that they were still disputed. Didn't care that there was an investigation going on for fraud. Didn't care about any of that. Sent them in anyway. So, yes, Donald Trump, in the fairness of trying to protect the Constitution, of trying to secure the election, said don't certify these electors because they were still disputed, for crying out loud, right? They still contested the election in certain states, and that's what Trump was talking about. That's what Trump wanted to do. But guess what? Mike Pence, for some reason, I don't know why, said, no, not going to do that. Don't care. Don't know. Don't care. We're going to do it anyway. Who gives a damn? That's why the people were pissed, because the left, with their shadow campaign, committed so much fraud. Or they, once again, like I said, they changed the rules to allow for fraud. So there you go with that. So I guess fraud is now legal, under the ballot harvesting rules and absentee ballots and all this garbage that Trump was trying to get rid of. But, it's one guy versus hordes of Democrat activists, right? You just can't fight against that. And had no idea this was coming and was trying to do this after the election because didn't find out it happened until after the election. And he's starting to see all these rule changes. He's like, did everything he could to try to find a way around it, because it was fraudulent, as a matter of fact. All you have to do is look at the amount of people that voted, for crying out loud. Right? The previous election, I've showed this before, you had like 65 million people vote for Trump and, a few more vote for Hillary, which, by the way, that's weird. Hillary won the popular vote. That's kind of insane if you ask me, but whatever, that's how the Electoral College system works. However, that's not the point. The point is, the very next election, the very next presidential election, you had 76 million people vote for Donald Trump and 81 million people vote for Joe Biden. That's insane. That is really insane, right? Donald Trump got more votes than any other incumbent president in United States history, and he still lost the election due to ballot harvesting. Outright, mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting. That's what happened. And he thought it was fraud, so he tried to challenge it. And now, all of a sudden, he's some authoritarian dictator trying to overthrow the government. No, he was trying to fight this crap through the court system, and he lost. He's not in power. He didn't stay in the presidency, did he? No. As a matter of fact, he didn't. He did everything he could to try to fight the election, to try to fight against this unlawful changes to the rules in the election, and lost. That's what happened. And now you're just mad because some people got out of hand on January 6th during that certification, right? They shouldn't have done that. Guess what? Yeah, they should not have gotten out of hand. They shouldn't have got violent. They shouldn't have fought with cops. They shouldn't have tried to go into the Capitol. Most definitely. But you understand why they did. They thought the election was stolen from them. I'm not trying to justify it. Not in the least. But I'm just saying, you can see why it happened. It's clear. to anybody and everybody to see what happened. But these people, they don't care about that. They don't care about the nuance of the situation. They don't care that, yeah, some of those electors were still disputed and were certified anyway, right? This is what the left does. The left doesn't care about law, doesn't care about the Constitution, for crying out loud. Joe Biden has outright proved that with his actions as president. It's insane. And if you don't believe me, once again, just go through my video archive. I've got the receipts. They're all there. Every single one of Joe Biden's unlawful actions, unconstitutional actions, I've covered on this channel. And it's insane. It's just outright insane. But I think that's all I got for this one, y'all. Y'all let me know how this debate went. You know, if you want to see the full debate, go check it out. It's okay. It's kind of weird. I just wanted to highlight some of the BS coming from Destiny because, you know, Destiny used to be the type, look, we could agree on the facts, but for something has radicalized him to just be insane, I guess. I'm not sure what's going on with that. To just ignore certain facts and just go with these set of facts because it's convenient, I guess. Right. You know, I criticize Donald Trump all the time, but, you know, people don't care about that. They don't seem to care. But, you know, like I said, I'm trying to wrap this video up. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about the debate. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.
I'm a problem child. I'm a problem child.
With the verse and a hearse and I got the ball rolling. I'm swirling your melon, going platinum, never golden. The boys folding like $100 bill. They don't want me packing steel when I get in their grill. I make a meal so they